Caloroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I imagine this week and next will be very slow for comedy news here, but I will have a normal schedule. I'll have episodes for you each day. I'll mix in some of my end of the year countdown specials so I can pre-tape a little bit here and give myself a couple days off. But if you're looking for an episode on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I've got an episode for you every day. Thank you for listening. I really enjoyed Jay Leno and Adam Carolla speaking to the Wrap. The Wrap asks a good question. Is there a common thread that you guys started off with that would still translate to today? Leno said, yeah, the most common is a girlfriend or boyfriend going, why do you have to work every night? If you're the spouse of a comic, I'm sorry, you might be close to equal or second in importance, but you're not first, especially if you're starting out in that relationship. No comic, male or female, is going to be happy in a relationship unless they're happy with their act. Unless you're happy with how you're doing on stage, then I am worthy to give my love to this person. But if you're dating one of these people, they have to do it every night because it's the repetition. It's the only way. They sit around that other 23 and a half hours waiting for their little set to come out, and there's nothing better than killing an audience. There really isn't. People say sex is great. Oh yeah, it's not really as good as a good comedy set. You know this joke, right? A comic's in Vegas the first time. He's all excited. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Goes back to his room after playing a set. The phone rings. Hi, my name is Felicity. I'm the leader dancer across the street, and I saw the show tonight, and I thought you were really funny and sexy, and I thought maybe I could come over and we could fool around. I mean, I'd leave before morning. I'd just like to spend some time with you. The comic goes, did you see the first show or the second show? Carolla laughs at that and says, that is such a universal comedian thought, because you do 2 shows and there's always one you like more, and then at some point you run into someone. They go, I saw you back at the whatever, and you go, oh, which show? When they say the bad show, which isn't even bad, it's not as good as the good show, there's a God hates me kind of moment. Carolla and Leno are doing that fantasy camp coming up in January. The Wrap is curious, can you take anyone and give them some comedic spark? Carolla says, I don't think you can make a non-comedian into a comedian. I think you take somebody who's got a little acorn of comedy and maybe turn it into a mighty oak tree, but I need some acorn in there. But being good on your feet and being relaxed and being sort of conversational in front of people has a universal application. If you're an attorney, certainly, or socially, whatever it is, maybe you're not going to end up being on the marquee playing the theaters that these guys play. It's still like, I would always tell people, take a groundlings class, take an improv class. Why? Because you're going to join the cast of SNL? No. So you can be funny at a party, give and take, and have good conversations. It could pay off on a first date. Leno says, I always find people's comedic ability is inversely proportional to their intelligence. You want to try and take as much from your life as you can. If you're like a dull person, a dullard, if you come across as sort of boring, then be really boring on stage. That's where your humor is. Carolla with a zing. That's what Jay does. He draws from a slice of life. Show of hands. How many people have had their Duesenberg break down on the 405? Leno says, see, being a comic, have you ever seen a group of animals and one of the animals is injured and all the other animals try to come and eat it? That's kind of like being a comic. That's what happened just now. ESPN wrote about Adam Sandler's basketball capabilities. ESPN writes, it's March 2023, and an LA-based photographer who goes by the moniker Xavier Luggage is in the middle of his first pickup basketball game at the Poinsettia Recreation Center. The park typically fills around 6 p.m. with people arriving to get their games in, but it's an hour or so earlier when the attention of the player snaps towards the side of the court. They all see him warming up, seemingly out of nowhere. Luggage told ESPN it was like, damn, that looks like Adam Sandler. Sandler shows up without an entourage, donning his signature brightly colored oversized polos and baggy shorts. He looks to make the extra pass. He dishes out as many compliments as assists, regardless of whether he's on your team, and competition reigns supreme. Luggage said he's like the random older dude that pulls up to the court and you're kind of like, all right, whatever, and then you pick him up and he's making the craziest passes, not moving too much, not doing the most, but he's just got the OG game like he's been playing forever. He came up to me and was like, oh man, I hope you're not fast, and I looked at him and I'm like, oh, you're effed up. He was meaning to play, not just to mess around, you know, like he wanted to win for sure. It was honestly pretty magical, bro. Patrick Quinn is a comedian who played Sandler in 2019. They were in a park in L.A. Sandler comes by, goes, you guys mind if I play with you? Quinn played against Sandler in one game, then they teamed up for the next. Quinn said he's essentially an influential person in other aspects that you're like, I wouldn't expect him to be doing these plays. It seemed like he had to be playing a lot to do something like that, and he was nailing them. Sandler, once again, was wearing bright colors and a large t-shirt. Quinn said Sandler's outfit is disarming. His theory is Sandler does it on purpose, so you don't think he's going to absolutely dominate on the court. He was playing point, calling out the plays. He was calling shots out. He was doing no-look passes. He was creating shots, and he was going up and down the court. He was back and forth sweating, putting in some work. I was very impressed. Joshua Jackson said Sandler had to be wearing something from a decade ago, like 3XL pants, wrinkled big and tall shirt. He definitely had clothes on that could fit a 6'8" linebacker. He executed a simple back cut and squared his body with the rim. Jackson turned around and said it was a perfect pocket pass. I had to go with it. He doesn't know how Sandler executed the pass, but described it as super quick and soft. He says, "It's still the best pass that I've ever received in my life, and I'm not saying that because it's Adam Sandler." Luggage said, "To be honest, I don't even remember him really leaving. I just remember that he just wasn't there." The LA Times spoke to Tom Papa about his podcast Breaking Bread. They were curious, are there any similarities or parallels between the world of comedy and food? Papa said, "Yes, there are. I named my podcast Breaking Bread because I'm huge into baking bread, and I love to host dinners and get-togethers. I've always enjoyed it. I thought it'd be perfect to talk about the food we all love. We all have drinks before enjoying a meal, and I bake bread for every guest to open up the conversation and literally break bread over conversations. It's one of the things that I live for. It's a passion of mine. I do it all the time. The podcast is growing. We just had Jimmy Kimmel on, Sarah Silverman, and more. Jerry. People are realizing this is a safe, comforting place to talk and enjoy bread, food, drinks, and conversations. As for food and comedy, the end result is both similar, that you're hosting people you're entertaining with, either with your food or your jokes, and you just want them to escape their lives and smile and enjoy themselves. Also, the process of cooking and baking is just as humbling as comedy. I've been doing both for a long time, and it's always a new experience. Anything can happen at a show or breaking bread at home. Really, Tom? You always have to be humble about your craft. It's not just a thing you can pin down. You get better at it, but it'll never be 100% perfect. No one ever nails 100% of every joke on their act all the time. Baking and cooking is very similar in this regard. Leanne Morgan wrote in her book that she felt unseen in the comedy industry for decades and had some advice. Leanne said, "I was coming up in comedy clubs when Comedy Central was big, and back then they didn't want to see a mama talking about 3 little children and how she couldn't fit in her pants. I didn't fit the bill, nobody cared, but I knew in my heart there were women out there who'd relate to me. I didn't go and live in New York or LA because my husband had a good job and we needed health insurance, but that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. It was one of those silver linings and blessings because I was able to have a real life with my family, and my real life led to this wonderful material I could mine that people could relate to. What I had to do, and I would tell others to do, is just keep believing in yourself. I just kept going. I'd pray about it, and God never shut the door. When I would get discouraged, I'd get some kind of sign to keep me going. Now at 59, I feel like I've really become my authentic self. I was recently asked to speak at my alma mater, the University of Tennessee, and I told those kids, don't change who you are. Don't be ashamed of where you're from. That's what made you who you are. Be authentic. That's what people are attracted to." That is great advice. Roz Hernandez is one of Vulture's comedians you should and will know. Roz says, "Sometimes when my family would eat spaghetti, I would secretly take one of the noodles out and slurp off all the sauce like a plain noodle. And I'd tie one end in a knot. Are you still with me? When no one was looking, I'd put the noodle in one of my nostrils and then fake sneeze really dramatically. When I'd remove my hands from my nose, my family would see a long noodle dangling from my nose, and then I would gaslight them and be like, 'What, is something on my face?' She says, 'I'm going to dust that one off next time I go on an Olive Garden date.' Worst show ever? I used to present as a drag queen with a big wig and the whole shebang. I hosted a monthly show in the smaller room of a venue with 2 stages. I couldn't even sell those tickets, but for a while, Joe Rogan would sell out the big room, and the people who couldn't get tickets to see Rogan would come to my show instead. I learned that the people who want to see Joe Rogan but didn't get their tickets in time are not my demographic." All right, what's your writing process? Yeah, I have to sit down at a computer and write crappy jokes every day. I feel like I heard older comedians say do that, and I'd get frustrated because my mind doesn't work like that. Now I just try to live life and take notes of funny things and experiences, and then I usually think about how to make them funnier as I drive around town. Biggest financial hurdle as a comedian? Not having rich parents. Best comedy advice, worst comedy advice. Best: get good in a smaller market before moving to a big city. I ignored this when I started in LA, and I've regretted it because it's really hard to undo first impressions. Worst: try to appeal to everyone. Cracked writes that Jerry, the character on Seinfeld, the character Jerry Seinfeld, is far from a neat freak, according to actual neat freaks. Someone in the subreddit wrote, "How come Jerry's supposed to be a neat freak, yet him and his friends regularly put shoes on the couch?" Along with that was a screenshot of Jerry enjoying a Diet Coke with a sneaker firmly planted on the cushion of his teal couch. Gabriel Filippi works for the Environmental Resilience Institute and said, "We can track in all sorts of bacteria, but certainly some of the ones we're most concerned about are E. coli, because that causes severe abdominal cramps, bloody diarrhea, and vomiting. There's been studies that swab the bottom of shoes, and something like 99% of the shoes test positive for fecal material. TV watchers point out Jerry gets rid of a shoelace for touching the men's room floor, but steps on the coffee table with that same shoe." One user said, "He's quite insane, a little confused, I guess." And that's your comedy news for today. Christmas is coming. I will have normal episodes all through I don't take a day off. Sometimes I pre-tape. If you listen on December 26th, then you're like, wow, John spent his Christmas recording the December 26th podcast. No, that was a pre-tape. But I'm around. See you tomorrow.